Hey Merfolk fans, I'm Joe. Thanks very much for joining me today. If you'd like to support my channel, please check the link in the corner up there to my Patreon page. I'm here with a replay of a match from a friendly league that I played today. I'm not going to upload the whole league, but I'm just getting back to Mono Blue after about 3 months of testing with Blue-Green Merfolk. I tested a lot of different variations of Blue-Green since Ixalan came out. And in the end, it just didn't really impress me as much as I'd hoped that it would. The small cards that we're adding, like Kumena's Speaker, Merfolk Mistbinder, that make it sort of more aggressive and allow us to trim the number of lands that we run, didn't add enough power to sort of offset the downsides of having a clunky mana base that does a lot of damage to us, and also losing Master of Waves, which is far and away the best top deck we can have in games that go really long. So anyhow, I'm back on Mono Blue. I'm enjoying it a ton. It just feels so smooth and enjoyable after playing Blue-Green for a really long time. So sorry to you guys who are really into Blue-Green. Hopefully you're having success with the deck. But for the foreseeable future, I'm going to be back on Mono Blue. So for this round, I won the die roll. And let's see the opening hands. This is an amazing Merfolk opening 7, so I'm going to keep. Opponent went down to 6, and I believe that they put a card on the bottom. So Island Vial. Botanical Sanctum into AEther Vial. So we get to play against the Blue-Green Mirror, I guess. Well, the Merfolk Mirror, which I just so recently gave up. AEther Vial on 1, drawing another land, not that good, but we might want to have 4 lands for Master of Waves eventually. Easy play here, Silvergill reveal Cursecatcher, hopefully draw something good. Another Cursecatcher is a body. We like having a lot of bodies in this matchup. Now, having all these early bodies might mean that jamming an early Lord of Atlantis might be correct, even though the opponent's going to have access to Island Walk if I do that. Important to note against Blue-Green that they virtually always have to give us access to Island Walk because so many of their lands are fetches that can only grab islands or forest islands. What is the opponent's opening? So Merfolk Mistbinder. Not that scary. They did just play an island, so I am going to have access to Island Walk. We'll take this AEther Vial up and hopefully draw something good. Oh, that was amazing. So we hit Harbinger, which means we can play Lord of Atlantis and Cursecatcher, leave up AEther Vial to bounce one of their attackers next turn. It's possible it might just be the Mistbinder if they don't have a 1-drop to put in which case we gain a huge amount of tempo. It's absolutely correct here to jam the Lord of Atlantis, even though it's going to buff the opponent's creatures and give them access to Island Walk, because we have so much pressure here. Opponent already took 1 from the Misty Rainforest. They're going to take 5 more, go down to 14, and yeah, they didn't have a 1-drop. So here is an Island Walk Lord. It's the good one. And since I have access to Island Walk, odds are the opponent's probably just going to attack in. Not super great. I mean, it's not the best possible situation for me because the opponent can, of course, just put this Mistbinder back out with AEther Vial. But not taking this 4 damage right now and getting another creature on the table is pretty amazing. So let's bounce that guy. If the opponent had something like Dismember, I could just counter it with Cursecatcher. How much are we swinging with here? We've got 7, 10. We're getting really close already. We're going to leave this AEther Vial on. Actually, you know what? I think we'd take the AEther Vial up here because assuming we draw like a 2-drop, unless it, well, even if it's Silvergill, we can play it and reveal Master of Waves. And then the following turn, even if we don't draw another land, we'll have an AEther Vial up on 4. We've got the opponent so slowed down that they're at least 2 or 3 turns away from being able to present lethal. So I think it's correct to take up the AEther Vial here. So we did, and we drew a Mutavault. Play that out right away. And before going to combat, because we don't want them to bounce one of our attackers and have reduce our devotion for Master of Waves. So tap all 4 lands, play the Master of Waves. We're going to get something like 8 elementals, I think. There they are. So getting set for combat here, I think I'm just going to swing in with everybody that's not the Island Walk Lord. That's going to be 10 points. And maybe they have a Harbinger to bounce one of these guys, but looks like they do not. All right, so 20 to 4. And I've got 14 creatures, 15 if you count Mutavault on my side of the table. So there is... let's see. There is the Mistbinder coming back out. So land, Misty Rainforest, they're going to activate the Mutavault. And concede. Yeah, I mean, it'd be pretty hard for them to win from this spot. I have access to Island Walk. They would need to deal with this guy. They would also need to deal with the Master of Waves. Beyond that, I have 5 other creatures. The guy's sitting at 4, so extremely strong game 1 on the play for my mono blue list. And yeah, the opponent had Botanical Sanctum into turn 1 Aether Vial, turn 2 Mistbinder. They had a good Island Walk Lord. They had a Mutavault. Not the worst hand from blue-green, but you know, we just kind of had it all this game. This Lord could have been the better Lord, but since we were so far on the front foot, it really didn't matter. We just wanted Island Walk, so this was great. 2 Cursecatchers kept the opponent off of anything like Vapor Snag, Dismember, Echoing Truth, without tapping them pretty low. Just a really nice game 1. So look away if you don't want to see the result of the match. I'm going to click out of this window now. Back for game 2. The opponent will be on the play here, so we're going to be in a more of a defensive mode this game. 1 land, Aether Vial. You know, on the draw, it's always a little bit sketchy, 1 land and Aether Vial, but it's really hard to throw it away, especially when we have a non-island blue source. It's possible we draw into like a Cavern of Souls or a Mutavault, and we can just keep the opponent off of Island Walk, which can help a lot in some games. So Spreading Seas, we were kind of hoping to draw a land, but we can just play land Aether Vial. Now, something to consider when we're building our mono base as mono blue, of course, is how many islands versus how many non-basic blue sources we run. In my old mono blue list, before switching over to blue green, I was running 4 Wanderwine hubs because, you know, I thought that keeping the opponent off of Island Walk was something that we should try to do if possible. I was still running 7 islands, but there's a couple of things involved now. First of all, Merfolk is at 1% of the metagame, I think, so coming across the mirror match is extremely rare. So it shouldn't really be an important concern when constructing your mono base. I think between main deck and sideboards, there's something like 20% of the metagame that has access to Blood Moon. And we'd rather not get hit by that. So if we're comparing just percentages of risks, Blood Moon seems more of a concern than the mirror match, the Merfolk mirror match. That being said, even if you run the 4 Wanderwine hubs, many times in the mirror match, you're going to end up playing islands anyway, just to play Magic. So, you know, it's really, the mirror match is a roll of the dice, and shaping your mana base to help influence your percentage in the mirror match isn't really advisable, I guess. That's where I stand now. So my current mana base is 4 Mutavaults, 4 Cavern of Souls, like the full playset, because the card is just so powerful. It turns off any counterspells. There's more counterspells in the format right now than there have been in a really long time. Cavern of Souls, extremely powerful, and then just 11 islands and this Oboro. So really, I haven't seen Choke or Boil in years, I guess. So here's a Branch Walker. The opponent, let's see, they have a couple islands. We're gonna have access to Island Walk. All right, we'll tick the Aether Vial up. Master of Waves, super clunky. We're gonna just take our medicine this turn. Here is a Mistbinder. And yeah, get in with the Branch Walker for some damage. Why not? We'll sort of fake out Aether Vial. I don't know if it's gonna force him to do something. I can't think of a spell that they might be playing. I got plenty of time on the clock. I can bluff an Aether Vial activation. So the Aether Vial is going to go up to 1. If we don't draw a land, we're going to bring Silvergill in. Well, Silvergill is not a land, so we're going to play a Silvergill and hope to draw a land. And we do. So as I mentioned, we often have to play an island in the mirror match. It's really hard to not play any basic islands. And at this point, I'm going to pass the turn, leaving up Echoing Truth. If the opponent plays Island Walk Lord, I can just bounce it and trade with a Mistbinder, which seems pretty good in this spot. Opponent taking damage from his lands, which we are happy to see. There's that Island Walk Lord. So, yeah. Go ahead and declare attacks. We did lure him in with our island. And I'm going to bounce this Master of the Pearl Trident. Okay, so unfortunately, in response, the opponent has a Dismember, but it's sort of good for us because the opponent is forced to waste the Dismember on my Silvergill Adept, which is a pretty big win for us. It's also, they're going to lose their Lord on the table, and we'll take 5 damage, but I feel like that was a good turn for us. We're going to need to start drawing pretty well. I think there's possibility that we should Vial in a Lord and then take Vial up to 3 so that we can play Master of Waves next turn. However, we know the opponent has an Island Walk Lord in hand, and we've got a bunch of 2-drops, including a Harbinger. So I think we're just going to leave Aether Vial on 2 here. Another Silvergill is a little bit clunky. I'm going to start off by playing one of those guys. See what I can hit. Ugh. All right, so we're going to go the Harbinger Aether Vial route here. There's that Island Walk Lord. All right, so they've only got 1 mana up at this point. They're swinging for 7 with Island Walk. Our options are to bounce the Mistbinder or to bounce the Branch Walker. Now, if we bounce the Branch Walker, we take 3 from the Mistbinder. Eventually, they'll get to play their Branch Walker back out and get value from his Explore trigger. On the other hand, if we bounce the Mistbinder, we take 3, the same as in the other scenario, but they don't get value off of an Explore trigger. So I think the correct choice here is just to bounce the Mistbinder. Casting costs are virtually identical. They're both 2-drops, and they've got tons of access to green and blue mana. So let's bounce the Mistbinder. Unfortunately, we can't block because of Island Walk, and we'll just take 3 and go down to 9. So at this point, I think we may want to do that Aether Vial play during our upkeep. So I think I'm going to put... now, we are on the back foot. There's 2 ways to go about this. I can bring in my Master of the Pearl Trident and just plan on getting beats in this turn. We know the opponent has the Mistbinder in hand. If that's all that they have, they won't be able to attack with this guy, and we'll have another turn. In which case, we'll probably just win because we've got a couple of Lords, and especially if we swing for 5 this turn. The other way to do this is to bring the Silvergill Adept out first, get an extra draw, and hopefully dig into Harbingers or Echoing Truths to continue bouncing their creatures and setting them back. I decided to go with playing a Master of the Pearl Trident here, and then we're going to tick up the Aether Vial to 3 to another Silvergill Adept. So we're really hoping to hit a Harbinger there, but we didn't get there. I'll play a Silvergill Adept, since that's sort of the best I can do. And we did hit the Harbinger. So, in hindsight, it may have been correct, with us being on the draw this game, to bring in the Silvergill Adept. We would have hit the second Silvergill off of the first Silvergill, but then the draw for the turn would have been this Harbinger. In which case, instead of playing this instead of casting the second Silvergill Adept, the first Silvergill Adept, excuse me, because I played this guy out. Instead of playing out the Silvergill Adept, I would have cast the Harbinger during my main phase and bounced this guy. In which case, we definitely would have gotten another turn. And having committed two bodies to the board, I still would have been able to attack this turn because he's not going to block with this Master here. Even if it was just, instead of for 6, if it was for 4. You know, so in hindsight, I think it was totally correct to go for the Silvergill, hoping to dig into something that would have slowed the opponent down on their attacks. But eventually, potentially blow them out, like if I drew into like a Dismember or something that could have, it would have lowered my life total, but I could have had really good blocks if I got rid of their Island Walk. So I'm going to get in for 6. That was a suboptimal turn for me. Digging for more cards would have been better. Also, showing the Island Walk Lord forces the opponent to win right away. Whereas if I didn't have as threatening of a board, it's possible I could have lured him into doing something like playing a Reejerey or something like that to buff their creatures and present a really solid wall against my potential attackers. I do have 9 life, but I'm tapped out, and it's probably just... so we didn't know about that Lord, and we do know about the Mistbinder, so that's going to be exactly 9. So unfortunately, the opponent's going to be able to get there. If we had bounced their Branchwalker, I think we could have gotten this game. So again, at least, you know, recognizing the misstep. I think this is a great example of the kind of nuance involved in playing Merfolk. I think people who are unfamiliar with the deck pretty much just think that it's jamming Lords, you know, which it kind of is in blue-green, to be fair. Yes, they play Silvergills, so that introduces a certain amount of complexity. They also play Harbinger. Both decks have more complexity than I think most people give them credit for. However, things like upkeep, Vial activation to bring in Silvergill Adept, and determine whether you want to take Vial up based on your draw off of Silvergill, trying to dig into potential outs like Harbinger. Those are some of the more subtle decisions that we have to make as Merfolk pilots. So I lost game 2, unfortunately. I think I did have a chance to win it. Look away for a second if you don't want to see the match result. I'm going to click out of this window now. And I'm back with game 3. As you guys know, being on the play in game 1 is super important because you can win game 1, lose game 2, and come back and be on the play for the final game of the match. So I do want to play first. Unfortunately, we have to mulligan this hand. Got a lot of nice stuff. Harbinger, 2 good Lords, Silvergill Adept, Master of Waves, pretty decent. But it's super risky with the mana, so we have to mulligan. This is not incredible at all. Now, we have the Spell Pierce. The opponent, let's see if the opponent kept or not. So they did keep. Now, I'm going to get to scry here. This is a really weird hand, and honestly, I think that I'm pretty sure that I kept this hand. It's really awkward. I think we get to scry, and that is an excellent card. So we're gonna put that on the top. Now, with this strange keep, my thought process was many times blue-green Merfolk lists keep opening hands with 1 land and Aether Vial. So if I can leave up Spell Pierce and take them off of that Aether Vial, I could potentially just run away with the game. So that's actually what I did. In hindsight, I'm not really sure if it's correct or not. Now, obviously, I have a lot of experience playing this deck. And 99 out of 100 times, you're going to play your 1-drop on turn 1 if you don't have an Aether Vial. But I decided in game 3, I can show you guys my sideboard strategy. It's nothing... that impressive. I took out all 4 Spreading Seas and decided to bring in 2 Echoing Truths and 2 Dismembers. For game 2, I think I had taken out the Spell Pierces and left in 2 Seas, but we rarely want to commit 2 mana to playing Spreading Seas in this matchup. Blue-green doesn't play as many Mutavaults typically as mono-blue, so we Mutavault is really the only thing we want to play Spreading Seas on, and they don't play a lot of Mutavault. So it seemed like taking out the Spreading Seas and leaving in the 2 Spell Pierce was decent. Remember last game, or was it the first game? I think it was the last game where the opponent dismembered one of my lords. If you could Spell Pierce one of those, it's a huge blowout because they had paid 4 life for it. And if we get to keep our lord on the table after that. So anyhow, kept Spell Pierce in. I'm really praying for the Aether Vial here. But it's Kumena's Speaker, and I feel pretty terrible about that because it just sets me back. But again, keeping on a weird, making a weird keep, I had an opportunity to sort of blow out the opponent, so I felt it was necessary to take that opportunity. As it stands, I get to just play out my Master here, hope that I draw into another 2-drop next turn, in which case I can play out the 2-drop and Cursecatcher. Opponent goes and grabs an island, and they have an Island Walk Lord, so they're cruising towards a very easy turn 3 win right now. Sorry, turn 4 win if they can draw another Island Walk Lord. That was among my best possible draws. It might just be the single best draw. A second Island Walk Lord allows me to swing in and make really good use of my mana this turn. Now, the opponent has already taken 3 damage from their lands. You can see that's a real drawback to playing blue-green. The opponent's going to be at 14, and we're just going to hope they don't have more lords. Okay, already going down to 13. They grab another island. And, the Echoing Truth, my lord. Now this is strictly incorrect because they should have attacked first with Island Walk and took me down to 14. Then bounced my lord. I think that they forgot that their own lord was going to get bounced. So, of course, the opponent still gets to swing in with Kumena's Speaker, but just a real bonehead play. So I'm going to go down to 15. The opponent has been on the front foot this game, but I'm still ahead in life totals because they've taken, I think, 4 damage from their lands. They follow up on the Aether Vial. I can't counter that because the Spell Pierce doesn't have any mana to use it with. Now, Reejerey is pretty sick because I can play that guy. If the opponent doesn't have a response, I get to play both of my lords the following turn and leave up mana for Spell Pierce if that matters. This turn, I'm going to swing for 2. They're going to go down to 11. The following turn, if I play the 2 lords, I think I'm going to swing for 8. Not quite enough for lethal, but they've only got the 1 creature on the board at this point. Obviously, they know that I have the 2 lords in hand. Aether Vial goes up to 1. Okay, so going for the Dismember, really hitting their life total really hard. So going from 11 down to 7 to deal with the Reejerey now, I'd have to say that's probably the correct play just because Reejerey gives me access to these 2 lords, and the opponent, again, knows that I have them. Silvergill Adept. I guess maybe they were thinking they'd hit another 1-drop and make a really good use out of Aether Vial. But still, we know they have a lord in hand, and surprised that they don't want to push damage here, honestly. All right. So drew a Silvergill Adept of my own. Now, I can play a Silvergill Adept, hope to hit a land, and then play a lord if I draw another land. But it just seems correct here to play a lord. I've got Spell Pierce back up. Obviously, they're not going to play anything right now. But if they have something like another Echoing Truth next turn, if I counter that, I pretty much just win the game. So I get to swing for 2 points of damage here. Aether Vial's not yet on 2 in case they have a Harbinger. The opponent's going to go down to 5. If we do a quick tally, I do believe that they took 4 off their lands and 4 from a Dismember. They had a fetch into Shock, which was 3, and then another fetch into Island. That's 4. It took 8. They would be at 13 life right now, the same as me, if they didn't have Painful Lands and Dismember. And I'm running Dismember too, so I think it just demonstrates how Dismember is a lot more dangerous in a fetch shock mana base. So there's Aether Vial on 2. We know they have that Island Walk Lord in hand. They play out the card that we know about. They've got 4 cards in hand. What could those cards be? Now, Cursecatcher's got this land covered if they have any removal, but I also have Spell Pierce. Swinging for 6 here. There's not a lot we can do against this, but we've got the win pretty much on board in a way because the opponent knows about this other lord in our hand. Aether Vial. Now, Aether Vial is really tricky here because if they have a Harbinger and bounce our Cursecatcher, we'll only be able to swing for 3 next turn with the Master of the Pearl Trident once I play this guy out. The opponent's swinging for 6. I'm going to go to 7. And then the following turn, they can swing for 9 if they had a Harbinger. So I'm just really hoping that they don't have a Harbinger here. If they did, actually, I don't know why they would do it now. They would probably just wait until my attack step and then bounce something to sort of wrong foot me. But they bluffed an Aether Vial activation. They didn't have any 2-drops. So it's possible they misclicked, but yeah. They're on turn 5 and they only have 3 lands, so they've got action in their hand. Not sure what's going on in there. Maybe they've got... Oh, why did they do that? They hard cast the Master of the Pearl Trident. They could have put him in with Aether Vial and done something with their lands. It's possible that they have a Reejerey in hand, in which case they would tap their 3 lands and use Aether Vial to put him in. I don't understand. If they don't have lands, they have to have spells. They could have Spreading Seas? Like their hand could be full of Spreading Seas? That's the only answer that I can think of. Unless they brought in... Oh, you know what? They could easily have like 2 Dismembers and a Spreading Seas or something like that. They can't use the Dismember because I can counter it, first of all. But second of all, I'll put them at 1 life, and they know I have the other Lord in hand. So it looks like we're just cruising here. Now, if I... Yeah, we're covered because I've got the Spell Pierce. If they did have Vapor Snag or something, and I could only get in with the Cursecatcher, I've got Spell Pierce as backup. So if we put this Lord in now, say that they Vapor Snag the other Lord, I'd only be getting in for 2 with the Cursecatcher. But yeah, Spell Pierce has my back. If they had a Vapor Snag for the Lord and I had to sacrifice Cursecatcher instead, that wouldn't be very good in this spot because I really need to close it out right now. It's possible the opponent could only push 6 damage next turn if their hand is in fact just garbage. But I feel like they would be able to win. They have a lot of live draws. They could hit a Merfolk Mistbinder, any Island Walk Lord to close it out next turn. So very, very happy that I have the Spell Pierce actually right now. So I think that the sideboarding strategy is correct here with my list. Take out the 4 Spreading Seas, bring in 2 Echoing Truths, 2 Dismembers, leave in my 2 main deck Spell Pierces. It's not the best card in the deck in the matchup, but it can come in very handy when we want to make sure we can close things out. So I'm going to swing for 6 here, and I don't think there's a lot the opponent can do, or even try to do. So we got there against blue-green. We won game 1, lost game 2, won game 3. Had the opponent been on the play, I think it would have been totally different. I think they probably would have won game 1, in which case it might have changed things for game 2 and game 3, but being on the play is a huge, huge advantage in the mirror, and I'm not going to pretend like I won this just through pure skill. I did make much better use of Echoing Truth than the opponent did. Remember that they bounced their own Lord by mistake by bouncing my Lords. They should have attacked first, gotten more damage in, and then if they still felt like bouncing the Lord, they could have done that. It was probably correct to bounce my Lords because I was developing such a powerful board, but they just did it at the completely wrong time. So I guess skill was a factor to a certain extent. I guess it always is, at the edges of decision-making in every match. It can often be what makes the difference, though it might not be obvious on its face. Like that Echoing Truth decision probably had a big impact on the way that the game played out in the end. So thanks for watching, guys. I don't think that this match was a definitive conclusion sort of on mono blue's dominance over blue green. I think it just shows, that mono blue has game against blue green. Now, a lot of people seem to think that blue green has the advantage because they're more explosive with more 1-drops, and that Master of Waves rarely comes into play. But it's still just a coin toss. You can draw bad lords instead of good lords. You can draw non-basic blue sources instead of islands to keep the opponent off island walk. Very much up to chance, I think, the mirror match. And then skill, it's balanced, luck-based, but depending on the cards that you get, you can do your best to outplay the opponent. Let me know your thoughts, any questions you might have. Check the link to my Patreon page if you want to support the channel. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks a lot. Bye.